What should I study? What will my career be like? And what challenges will I face? To help you answer questions like these, we've invited local professionals to share their knowledge and experiences with you through a discussion hosted by Mid-Admissions Representative Chris Pellerito. If you're joining us live, we hope you'll ask questions in the chat. If you're watching the recording, add your questions in the comments and we'll follow up with you. To explore the opportunities available at Mid and put your future plans in motion, connect with us at midmich.edu/admissions. Hello, my name is Beth Binder, and I'm the Director of Admissions at Mid-Michigan College. Welcome to our Career Roundtable series. We're excited to have you join us. As you consider different careers, you may be asking yourself questions like, what should I study? What will my career be like? And what challenges will I face? To help you answer questions like these, we've invited local professionals to share their knowledge and experiences with you through a discussion hosted by Mid-Admissions Representative Chris Pellerito. If you're joining us live, we hope you'll ask questions in the chat. If you're watching the recording, add your questions in the comments and we'll follow up with you. To explore the opportunities available at Mid and put your future plans in motion, connect with us at midmich.edu/admissions. Hello, my name is Beth Binder, and I'm the Director of Admissions at Mid-Michigan College. Welcome to our Career Roundtable series. We're excited to have you join us. As you consider different careers, you may be asking yourself questions like, what should I study? What will my career be like? And what challenges will I face? To help you answer questions like these, we've invited local professionals to share their knowledge and experiences with you through a discussion hosted by Mid-Admissions Representative Chris Pellerito. If you're joining us live, we hope you'll ask questions in the chat. If you're watching the recording, add your questions in the comments and we'll follow up with you. To explore the opportunities available at Mid and put your future plans in motion, connect with us at midmich.edu/admissions. Hello, my name is Beth Binder, and I'm the Director of Admissions at Mid-Michigan College. Welcome to our Career Roundtable series. We're excited to have you join us. As you consider different careers, you may be asking yourself questions like, what should I study? What will my career be like? And what challenges will I face? To help you answer questions like these, we've invited local professionals to share their knowledge and experiences with you through a discussion hosted by Mid-Admissions Representative Chris Pellerito. If you're joining us live, we hope you'll ask questions in the chat. If you're watching the recording, add your questions in the comments and we'll follow up with you. To explore the opportunities available at Mid and put your future plans in motion, connect with us at midmich.edu/admissions.
Good morning. Welcome to Mid-Michigan College. Welcome to our roundtable. This is one of our of a series of roundtables, and I'm especially psyched about this one. And I don't know if that's proper phrasing, but I am for a number of reasons. The operative part of today is welcome, and I'm going to get one of the first questions I have into why that's such a key point today, but we'll get there in a minute. I'm Chris Pellerito with Mid-Michigan College, and if you're curious, right about here, Middle Michigan. We're about 5 miles from our good friends over at CMU here in Mount Pleasant, and we have another campus about a half an hour north of us in Harrison, or outside of the town of Harrison, with its quaint, rustic charm. And we're happy to have you as part of this. Based on some of the feedback I've gotten, I know we've got folks joining us this morning, this wintry, lovely morning, from all over. So again, welcome. Glad to have you here. A couple of quick thank yous, because gratitude is important. I like to start with it. Our guru handling all the tech today is Noah behind the camera. Thank you, Noah, for doing what you do. Off to my left, your right, not on screen, and that's by design, is my colleague, way smarter than I am, Ryan. If during the course of this morning you've got a question or you'd like to hear a little more feedback or follow-up or something, let us know. Ryan is fielding those questions, and I know when we did this last year, a couple of very good questions came in. And speaking of that, I received a couple of very good questions in advance. So we're going to get to those today, I assure you. Okay? Having said all that, I would love to hand it off here. And this is how I'd like to do it. Last year when we did this, we talked about, it was kind of this comic book theme and origin stories of superheroes and stuff. I'm going to change it up a little, but it's okay if you want to keep with the superhero theme and give us your origin story. But wall plaques when there is art. I've heard artists say, I don't really like wall plaques because I don't want it to be limited to like 3 sentences, my work. But what would be on your wall plaque? As you're introducing yourselves, tell us a little bit more and include that. Anybody care to start? Jeff?
Well, I'm Jeff Best from Clare, Michigan. Full-time artist, been an artist for 10 years, but full-time artist for 10 years. But my plaque, I guess, would be just self-made, maybe. So, if that would be. When I say self-made, art, I don't have a classical education. The education of hard knocks type of thing, some natural ability, but then a passion for my art. So I don't know. That's not a real good sentence, but that's me.
Okay.
That's pretty much me.
We're not overly concerned about really good sentences. Okay. Look who's moderating this morning.
My name is Pat Onstadt, also here from Mount Pleasant. My non-traditional path is kind of the business sector, and I guess my wall art would be that I have the joy and privilege of seeing the young and up-and-coming artists get to spark that ingenuity, and I just absolutely love that. Seeing the high school students start their path to doing the things that they're doing. So.
Cool. You do so in a role as teacher.
Yeah, that is correct. Right now I'm a current digital media instructor at the GI Tech Mount Pleasant campus, which is a technical education program.
Good deal.
And I am Amy Powell. I live in this general vicinity. I'm currently serving as the executive director of Artreach, which is the nonprofit art organization right in the heart of downtown Mount Pleasant. And I would say succinctly, passion inspires.
Cool. Passion inspires.
Passion inspires.
That's good.
I'm
Got
a
that?
passionate person.
Passion inspires. I won't ask you if you have that tattooed somewhere, but it sounds good. Okay. I referenced the welcome, and I wanted to get back to that right away because I want to ask each of you. It seems to me that some of the most tolerant folks on earth and some of the most welcoming folks on earth, and I've seen this with my kids who were involved with art. I don't know why I made air quotes. But why is it that artists tend to be a little more accepting, a little more understanding, a little more tolerant? They're more inclined to say welcome. Why is that?
I'll start with that because I deal with it every day.
Sure, yeah.
You have to be thick-skinned. I think you, as an artist, you are putting yourself out there. You're putting your soul, putting your art, putting your medium out there. And I think you're used to taking that critique, and you're more than welcome to ask people, what is your opinion? What is your perspective? And I think we're always gaining those perspectives from others, not only on our art, but also what others can do traditionally better as well. So I think that helps where the welcoming comes into play.
Yeah, good point. Jeff, Amy.
I was just going to say that I think for a lot of artists, they use the, like the other, I'm not a brain person, but I know there's like a right and a left, and I don't know which it is.
Sure.
One of you know which it is? Yeah. Left, okay. And so I think because they're tapping into that creative side of their brain, maybe there's something about that says, hey, this is how I want to be treated, and so this is how I'm going to treat others type thing. And I do know that that creative part is in everybody. It's just whether you have learned how to channel that into something that is an outlet. Mm-hmm. And so I think because the word art is so broad, just looking at the three of us here, it isn't always something that is like black and white, and I think because of that, there's a lot of room for, those nuances that make us go, hey, maybe you've got something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would say.
Okay.
Mine would be, I guess, the word passion. I mean, I understand passion can be, if you're overly passionate, sometimes you get criticized for that. But I appreciate passion. I appreciate people that have passion for whatever they're involved with. And as long as they have that passion and they enjoy what they're doing, I'm happy with them, And when I say that, I mean, there's always there's people that maybe that I don't agree with politically, let's say,
Sure.
if you want to use that, or in social context. But I still, if they're a passionate person and enjoy what they're doing and feel what they're doing is right, I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
I am acceptable to that type of thing. But I think I'm that way regardless with me being an artist or not.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay.
Just
Cool.
ingrained.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask this next question in two different ways. Okay, and I love doing this when I teach too. Ready?
Ready.
Listen, okay? How do you look at art? How do you look at art?
Well, I'll start. I like art that appeals to me. Obviously, that's going to be the same with everybody.
That's deep, Jeff.
yeah. But there's art out there that is art, and I acknowledge it as art that doesn't appeal to me.
Sure.
I've often said to people that they're talking about good art and bad art, and I always tell people there is good art and bad art, and the thing of it is, it's the same piece. It's the same piece that I make. That a good piece of art that I make is because somebody thinks it's a good piece, and another person looks at it, I don't care for that. And so,
I've never heard an artist admit that.
Well, I mean,
it's
but it's true.
perspective.
It's true. I'm more of I'm more into realism. I like to take my wire and turn it into an animal. To make it look like an animal as close as I can. But there's other artists out there that I really appreciate that maybe are more contemporary, or they're just abstract stuff. And as I've been in the art world the last 10, 15 years, I've come to appreciate that more over time. So so I guess that's my view of that.
I look at it two ends of the spectrum. For me, in the multimedia type of field, with the art end of things, it's mind-numbingly frustrating of going down the road, looking at a billboard, a flyer, a movie. I'm constantly analyzing. I cannot get myself out of watching a movie and without looking at the lighting, the sound. Where I really appreciate it, and kind of what Jeff's saying, is when the finished product and I don't notice the process. That's what I love about art.
Yeah.
When you don't notice the process of the end result, I absolutely just find absolute awe in that. Mm-hmm. When you start to recognize the process, then you start critiquing it, particularly at the high school level, because once again, I'm helping kids get to find their own voices.
Yeah.
But it's a critique, and it's a wide range in the spectrum of the critique to the appreciation. But I agree with Jeff. I mean, I think there can be. Art is so many different viewed from so many different perspectives, and that's what I love about it. It's absolutely phenomenal.
Well, I want to hear from you, but
Yeah,
a quick
I wanna hear
follow-up
more.
question. Don't you find, I'm kind of going the opposite end of what you just shared. Don't you find, as having a really good discerning eye in that world, that when you see it done well, I hear you, it's like, because I do that too in certain areas, but for example, I've coached track and field for a long time. I see a good high hurdler, and I know what goes into that. It's beautiful to see a good high hurdler. Don't you find that too? Like, that person got it right as far as the design goes.
Oh, 1,000%.
Okay.
I mean,
All
no question about it. And the other thing is too, and maybe Jeff can kind of talk to this as well. There'll be things that we've done previously that I thought was either bad, and over time it's aged into, that was pretty good, or vice versa. I can't believe we produced that, and all of a sudden now it's like, okay, that's kind of an embarrassment. So I think art with the eye evolves from a critiquing standpoint as well.
Sure.
And so I'm going to flip this just a little bit because although I'm...
Of course you are.
Well, yeah, so I'm an art administrator, but when I describe myself as an artist, I'm a vocalist. So look at that, maybe. So when I see what a finished product is, it's a different process than like what these two are with something that's like purely visual. So for me, and I will agree with Pat, it's hard to turn off. So I can even hear if there's one person in an ensemble that is out of tune. Instrument being voice or something physical that you are performing on. And also, for me, a lot of that translates into theater as well. And so looking at the art media as a complete, process and project, to kind of piggyback on some of your words there, when I am truly sucked into something, I often cry about it because and I do that with visual things too. Like I've seen, visual pieces that have just moved me to the point that, oh my gosh, like that's amazing. But it's the same for me if I see amazing theater or if I hear amazing, music performed as well. It is, for me, it's like a kind of a guttural response that is so deep I can't even control it. And the same side of that, when it's really, really awful, it kind of enrages me. And so in the performative side of things, a little bit it's the mechanics of it are there is a right and a wrong, right? So like if someone is singing something and they are not on the right pitch, if they're a little flat or if they're a little sharp, that in fact is wrong. Whereas that's a little bit different from some of the other like visual art components, because art, as Jeff said, isn't right or wrong depending on there's no right or wrong when it comes to, I feel, like the visual arts, because it just is. And I would also say, like, I don't think that there's good art and bad art, but I do think that there are bad performances.
Sure. Yeah.
And I want to add to that, Amy. I think subjectivity, as like Jeff mentioned, is absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
And not to mention the emotion. We talk about all the time of what type of emotion can you bring out in this piece, whether it be if you can make somebody laugh, cry, or think, you've done your job. Whether it be creating a video, a sculpture, or an exhibition, that's the whole goal of it, right?
It is, yes. And I think about that too when I ask people to think about one of the earliest memories that they have as, an adult. And now you're all thinking about your earliest memories. A lot of times it will involve some sort of creative sector. So it's a theater performance, it's a concert that they went to, it's a song that they heard that has a specific meaning to them. If they were with, a grandparent or someone took them to, something that was performance-based. And so when we look back on that as kind of like a reflective piece, it really showcases how important and meaningful and lasting the art and the creative sector is.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Okay, so I got to ask right out of the gate or early on in this conversation, there's roughly 217, 18-year-olds that think they want something to do with the art pathway. But there's also a lot of folks out there like me who might say, I don't get it, or I don't see it. Like I've seen some of your work and I'm flabbergasted, but your work's different than some other forms of art. Do artists feel like those that just don't get it are schmoes? What would you tell those people? And I kind of asked you a moment ago, like, how do I look at art? What should I be looking for? What should I see? How do I know that's incredible and that's Uncle Louie did in his basement, he's just fooling around? Do artists look at those like myself as schmoes because they just don't get it?
Well, Possibly, but you know, there's when you were saying that, I was thinking about the trench art. Have you ever heard of trench art? It was like if someone's in a foxhole in World War II and they've taken a piece of shell and they've taken whatever and they've carved it as they're sitting in the foxhole and they've turned it into art. And I've seen a lot of that in museums and whatnot. And you know, that guy was just trying to, you know, live, number one, but you know, pass the time as he's setting it. And so he wasn't making that piece to say that it's going to be in the Smithsonian Institute eventually, or it's going to be in some high-priced art gallery somewhere. He was making it because it was just something to do, and it was enjoyable, take his mind off of other things. So yes. I don't think that we should discount someone that just does it in his backyard, or you know, Uncle Louie in his garage. But is it marketable? You know, if that's what you're trying to do, you know, those are some things that if you're trying to do it for a living, then that might be you know, some consideration. Sure. But you know, keepsakes from your relatives 100 years ago, whatever. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It was from, you know, great grandpa, whatever, you know. Yeah. And so maybe I'm going down too many little rabbit holes here, but I think that's there's always a consideration of what the piece is and where it's from, and there's a story behind it, and the story sometimes is more important than the piece. So.
I was just going to say, I will echo that sentiment exactly. Some of the most moving art pieces for me have been, and I'm talking like visual arts at this point, are the pieces of art that I have learned what the connection is from the artist. And those are, they're compelling. And I'm when I say it brings me to tears sometimes to hear what the story is and what the meaning is and how it has become what it is. And I am in awe with artists who can take that picture in their mind and make it into something that is equally as profound for the rest of us to be able to consume. And so one of the most important aspects for me, and especially the visual arts, is connecting with the artists to know what is that story behind it, because there's always a story. You know,
love the backstory.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to go back to Jeff's statement of passion. I think as an individual artist, individual content creator, in whatever medium you're working with, you got to be true to yourself. I had a coach once tell me you can't be like Coach Shastevsky. You got to be you. Coach the way you are. And I tell the kids in the classroom, saying, you be you, all the other stuff will take care of itself. I think when you start looking at the naysayers, I think you start looking at some of the commercialized art that just are mass produced. And even that can still be some great stuff. But I think that's where the bad connotations come from that. Sure. But as long as you kind of keep that same passion from your heart, I think true artist is gonna kind of come out.
Cool.
We have a question in the chat that kind of goes right with this.
Sure.
We had somebody ask about words of advice for a design process. So how do you come up and get inspiration with these ideas?
Did you hear that?
I love the brainstorming process. Okay. I think the
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So one of the questions is, how do you come up with the process, right, is what you're telling me, Ryan, of with your artist, depending on what you're working with. I think I know in my realm, the brainstorming is one of the most crucial aspects of things. I always try to challenge my students in my classroom, enjoy the process more than enjoy the outcome. Yeah. And it's coming up with those different type of activities and brain activities that get you engaged. Look at other people's inspiration. Look at not just your own video, look at things that you may not like, but you might steal inspiration from them, and you really immerse yourself into it. Because I think that's the best form of flattery. And I'm not sure how, Jeff, I would love to hear how you come up with some of the amazing things you do from your kind of conception.
Well, it might be a little different for me at times because I'm pretty much all commission artist. I get people that say, hey, I want this made. Will you make it? So it's a little bit different process because now you're trying to take their vision and bring their vision to life. Yeah. So there's obviously there's still my part that's in it, my artistic ability and my artistic vision, but I'm still trying to satisfy the customer, if you will. Shoot, I had something else I was going to say. I'm 62. I lose it every once in a
It's
while.
all good. Is there a great deal more pressure being a commissioned artist?
Well, yes and no. I mean, there's definitely pluses and minuses of it. Obviously, you have a fairly steady income because of it. The negative part of it is that I can't go get lost myself and do my own thing, you know. And that's what I always tell people, that in art, I mean, go get lost. I mean, try things, you know, unique things, and do some things that end up turning out really cool. But if you wouldn't have tried to get lost, you would have never found that out. It's a little hard for me to do that when I'm trying to, you know, take the vision of somebody else and you know, make a final product that they'll enjoy. The product, what I was going to say before, is the construction, the design part of mine is I still try to, you know, let's say this is what I want, and then I'll come up with some ideas of my interpretation of their vision. And I always say, as an artist, I'm part engineer. I'm not educated as an engineer, but I gotta, you know, I make some big pieces that I have to figure out, you know, how heavy this piece is gonna be, you know, how is it gonna be mounted, what kind of armature does it need to have. And I've learned that over time. I've had some armatures that I've made that was fine, but once I got them transported, they started breaking down, you know, that type of thing. So, so I'm part engineer on top of being an artist. And that's all part of the learning process as you go. And I do it and learn it as I go, instead of having a classical education to teach me that. But it's all possible, obviously, is what I'm saying.
Jeff, what's the website? Devil's Rope?
Devil's Rope Studio is my website.
.com?
.com. I tell people go to my Devil's Rope Studio Facebook page. That's more up to date. My website, I'm not a computer person, and I've had several people that do web design, and they're terrible. Everyone that I've used is terrible, and so I don't have it updated. So if they want to see my most recent pieces, they'd have to scroll back, obviously. But this generation, they know how to scroll back and figure that stuff out. So.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen any of Jeff's work, it's worth a few minute visit. It's really impressive that way.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that we've gone through this, that we're going through, because I've taught writing for many years, and we talk often about it. There's a process to it. At least the good ones, they follow a process. Do you find students resist that notion that there is a process?
Oh, 1,000%. And they want to see the outcome. I just had a student yesterday.
Yeah.
Can we just shoot the film? Can we just shoot the film? No.
Yeah.
We're going to go through the brainstorming. We're going to go through the storyboarding. We're going through the script writing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They do resist it. But I think when students then see the value of when it is completed and the process that came, that created that value of end production, then they make that connection. No question about it. There's some resistance. Heck, we'll do things like we'll get on a whiteboard and I'll do a bunch of squiggles on there. It's called Squiggle Bird. Make this out of it. Make this into a bird, and we'll just do nothing but brainstorming just to get things sparked. Cool. And then we get into scripting. Then we get into storyboarding. I would say most of our productions, that front end process is probably more time consuming, more challenging than the technical process by far.
Sure.
And I'm a lot of, there's like two worlds out there. Like there's the sport world and then there's the creative sector. And so what I think a lot of times is in that, athletic field, we see that, right? We see them literally on the practice field.
Yeah.
But with artists, we don't see that side of it. And so for a lot of folks, that middle step is overlooked because that is not always what we as consumers see in the process. But if anybody has done anything athletic, you know that you can't just go from, picking up a bat to being able to bunt even, or hit a line drive. And so when we can make those connections between other areas that are very commercialized and popularized, then it becomes, kind of an enlightenment piece that, Yeah, it isn't just, getting to the end of a video shoot and going, yeah, we didn't need to do anything to make all those pieces fall into place. But in fact, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that process.
Sure.
And so, so I really think that once we can, kind of connect those dots for people, then there's an awareness piece too.
Wow, good stuff. You know what I love about this conversation? I've barely gotten into any questions I thought I was going to ask because you guys are just taking this in a really cool direction. But I'm going to. And just for the record, before we go much further, if your name is Louis or you have an Uncle Louis, I meant no offense. There are many Louis who are, I'm sure, great, wonderful artists and very creative. I'm going to throw some job titles out there. I just need a yes or a no. Are these artists? Graphic designer?
Yes.
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 Okay. User experience designer. I love that title.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not sure what that
Photographer.
is.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Interior designer.
Yes.
Multimedia artist and animator.
Yes.
Art director.
Yes.
Advertising and promotions manager.
Yes.
Fashion designer.
Yes.
Film and video editor.
Yes.
Poet.
Yes.
Good answer. I kind of figured it was a bit of a loaded question, not loaded, but it just to me, as I do a little of the little speck of research before we meet, it's like, wow, I hadn't really considered it. I have a son who's a photographer. He's in a lot of ways, he's an artist, which is kind of cool. Do you think?
Were you hoping for some no's there, Chris,
Nope.
to kind of get some angst?
No, I fully expected there'd be a bunch of yeses, but on a mildly related note, do you look at I don't want to say cool set of lyrics, because what I think is a cool set of lyrics, you might say, yeah. But if you look at a set of lyrics and they're well written, do you say that's a nice work of art?
Absolutely. And I'll put it in a different realm.
Sure.
To put myself out there, I'm not much of an anime fan, okay, when
Yeah.
it comes to the artistry of it. In the sense of I should say artistry, the output of it.
Yeah.
But I absolutely appreciate and I'm fascinated with the art that goes into that.
Mm-hmm. How come?
Just the amount of detail, the vision, the execution, how one piece can create so much emotion. And kids will look at it and like, oh my gosh, and it tells a story. Amy mentioned before that one piece can tell a story. I'll give you another example. I don't have any ink on my body whatsoever. I love the art of tattooing, but I'm scared to death of needles. But I appreciate the art, So I think there's art, and you can appreciate, even though if it's not your thing, you can appreciate the end result, the process, what goes into it, and the person behind that. What Jeff mentioned. The person behind that of what it took for them to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I give lots of presentations, and even to the youngest of learners, like kindergartners, I'll say, like, hey, I'm gonna pick on you. You're wearing a logo shirt here. So who designed that swoosh right there?
I'm sorry.
A graphic designer.
Yes.
So when we talk about the ways that the creative sector is involved with literally every aspect of our lives,
Yeah.
it's.
But most don't recognize that.
They don't, and I hope that. I hope that maybe by bringing some awareness, that there is a greater appreciation, because I do think that that's part of what is, and we're getting there, but lacking a little bit is the appreciation for the end result. And I think it goes back to that, kind of the sports analogy, that we don't necessarily see what all the steps are in the process. And whether you're, went to college to be an artist or not, you still, and I know Jeff's backstory. I know that he's gone through a lot to become the artist that he is today. He didn't just wake up one day and go, oh, you know what, I think I'm going to tinker with this, and voila,
And I'm
commission.
Make a good living at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
And so I do think that once we can really kind of like normalize that the creative sector is involved in everything that we do. Someone had to design these chairs that we're sitting in. And yeah, there's some, mechanical pieces there, the engineering, but somebody had to come up with the fabric design, the carpet on the floor, like everything.
Okay, here's a giant important piece. You see it in the movies with superhero stories, but everybody knows, those are just superhero stories. But in a lot of ways, no offense, but in a lot of ways, you're a superhero. You're at a point, you're at a point where a lot of kids would aspire to get to, but don't know fully what's in between. And like you just addressed, the difficulty and the challenge of getting to that point. I heard you say you didn't start as an artist. So do you want to just touch on that? Because there's a bunch of 17 and 18-year-olds that probably would like to know what's it take?
Yeah, it was very organic for me, but I always had the first time I did any art at all that I remember was when I was 8 years old, and I was at the hearth of in our home at our where the fireplace, and I drew a horse head. We had horses growing up. I know it was 8 years old because my dad died when I was 8 years old, and it might have been 7 years old, but anyways, I remember him looking at that and showing everybody that I just, with a pencil drew it. And so that was pretty much my only memory of my father was that time. But so I've always had that ability to look at something and draw it. I've always had, but I never had the thought to myself, oh, this is what I'm going to do for a living. I did like everybody else does. I got a good job. I had a family and raised my kids and all that kind of stuff. Without any idea of that art was going to be part of it. But it was real strange. It was a strange situation as I walked through a woods one day that I had the old farm dumps. If you're familiar with the old farms used to have a hole in the ground out in the woods, and they would throw all their old debris in it. Old hog feeders, whatever it may be.
Washing machine.
Yeah. And we bought some property. I was walking the property. I found a big spool of barbed wire, rusted barbed wire.
Cool.
And exactly when I saw that, and this is no kidding, instantly when I saw that, I thought that would be cool to make a deer head out of. That's what was in my mind, is make a deer head out of that. I thought that would be a pretty cool material. And I went out there with my tractor, scooped that up. So I would have been probably 45 years old, 50 years old maybe at the time, and brought it in my barn. And it laid in my barn for a year or two, and then eventually I had to clean the barn out for a graduation, for my kid's graduation party. Anyway, so that winter I did, and that's what kind of started it. So it was very organic with me, but it was something that was very pleasurable to me. I mean, I was running 2 other businesses at the time, and so this was something I was doing on the side. Still, even when I did it, I had no intention of it being a full-time job. But I was doing it on the side, and then people wanted this and wanted that and wanted this made, and it just evolved into that. And so I ended up selling those other businesses and did it full-time. But that was my intention. But
was that a bit of a leap of faith? I mean, you just casually went through the part from people wanted to buy it.
Yeah, my wife has a really good job with health insurance, so it made that
okay.
It made that step a lot easier. But so because the first few years, I mean, I didn't do I was pretty successful, but not to the point I am now. But there's a lot more things to talk about if you're thinking about being a full-time artist. That probably it would take a lot more time than we have that I'd love to talk to people about. But it was very organic, and I've been blessed. I mean, it ended up, I said I had a couple other businesses. I was way in debt, and art got me out of debt.
Wow.
So, and there's a lot more to that story, but I'll leave it at that.
No, but thank you for sharing that version. It helps.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really, really, really valuable good teachers out there right now that probably can share some perspective and have some further conversation about that. You want to add anything?
I think what I would add is we challenge our students all the time. The 9 to 5 is easy. It's the 5 to 9 is what's going to make or break you. And obviously Jeff did a lot of 5 to 9s.
Yeah.
In a sense, the freelancing and doing it in his pole barn. Whether you're on a job, whether you're in school, etc., that technical training, the formal training, or it could be on the job training, what have you, or just making a living. We can do that stuff. What passion do you have to do from 5 to 9? And that's what I always challenge my students with as well.
That's good. Anything you want to add?
No,
Okay.
not at this point.
Got another question in the chat.
Okay.
So Amber from Gladwin said, how did you know you wanted to be an artist?
How did you know you wanted to be an artist? You want to jump in on that?
Well,
I mean, you kind of touched on it,
Yeah,
but
art kind of picked me. I didn't really. I mean, in other words, it was very organic, and it was just something that attracted me to it, and it was just something that I knew that I needed to do to express myself. But I had been many years that I didn't express myself. It was just when I turned 45, 50 years old, whatever it was. But I've always had a love for art and enjoyed looking at art of all different types, whether it be music or whatever it may be. But it was just it was something that inside of me that said I had to express it. Now, I didn't think that because I expressed it, someone was going to want to have a piece of it, But
sure.
But I would still be doing it, whether someone bought it or not. I mean, my yard just would be a lot fuller of my stuff than it is.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. They say when you're a writer or you enjoy writing, don't write a novel because you want to sell 1 billion copies and have it made into a movie and you make it rich and famous as a result of writing your novel. Write the novel because you want to experience the process. You want the joy of creating something magical, and maybe some others will share in that joy also. Is that the case with artists? I mean, would that kind of apply across the board? Like, don't paint that whatever because you think you're going to go make $10,000 from it.
Right.
Maybe you will.
Yeah, so I mean, I think what I'm hearing is have the process lead to an end result. Don't start with the end and think that that's where you're going to, don't start with the end, basically.
Sure. And many will say, oh, you should start with the end in mind. But not, I've always heard as far as writing goes, nah, don't.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with, some of the things that we've already talked about is you have to kind of go through some of the steps in order to get to that successful end result. So, if you're, what's the underlying motivation, I guess, would be my question is, do you want to make $10,000 or do you want to impact people?
Well, both.
Well, both. Yeah, right, don't we all? But I do think that if the revenue part of it is your sole driver, then probably that passion is not going to come through, and there will be some disappointments. Is what I would say. You can't have you kind of have to have a healthy mix of both. I mean, we all need money to survive, right? But at the end of the day, if that's the sole motivator, the only thing, then that passion is not going to be there. It's like, people who hate what they're doing. That's what you will end up is hating what you're doing, and you will not be successful. So I think that the passion needs to be there, and then the next steps will follow. That's what I would say.
Okay. Tragically, we're coming up on around the end of our time. I think I indicated in writing to you, our remarkable teachers, that we would keep this under an hour with certainty. So I want to get to this question. It's one of my favorite to ask, and frankly, I was really surprised in a nice way when I asked this at this table last year. I was surprised by the response I got. Okay? Danny sat right here, and boy, it was like, here we go. Okay. Now I need to find that question.
Got us in suspense.
I'm so good. Steve Jobs once said, if you want to make everybody happy, don't be a leader, go sell ice cream. Will the world really ever listen to artists? Can they lead the way?
I think artists are leading the way, truthfully. I mean, I look back to...
That's what Danny said last year.
I mean, I just think most recently of the, the COVID times, and what were the things that often sustained people during those times when we were all having to be in our houses and couldn't go and do things and couldn't go and see things? It was the orchestras that were streaming something that had already happened.
Yeah.
It was not the NFL. It was not the, baseball association. It was a theater screening that was done in an outdoor venue. It was musicians. So I would say that creative sector has demonstrated really how important it is for our sustainability as humans.
And I'll piggyback on your last question. I have a number of students asking, hey, how do I be an influencer or a viral video? Okay, make great content, make creative content, people are going to find you. And those people are the ones that are leading the way right now.
You're 100% sincere in that. You believe that entirely.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be sitting here. I got the chill down the back of my spine right now thinking about it 100%.
Well, I mean, obviously that question kind of comes from the thought process of what is art, because I've had people will say to me at a show or something, I don't have any artistic ability at all, and I always disagree with them. I says everybody has artistic ability. It just depends on what that may be. I always tell my brother, because he said that to me. If you go down to my brother's home, he's the most. He has things lined up. He lives in Texas, lined up, and he's the most hospitable person. I mean, he's got things thought out and planned, and to make it very enjoyable. His art is hospitality. That guy is, that's his abilities to. Sure. He sees that. He looks. He thinks about it ahead of time, and he's got a process in his mind of what he's going to do to make it very enjoyable for you. And so I think we all think that art is just someone that can bend some wire and make a sculpture, and it's not. I mean, that's definitely art, but I think of Abraham Lincoln. He was not a very attractive person. He was, if you listen to his voice, they say it was very squeaky, but the guy was his thought process and his ability to write and to motivate oratorily, or how do you say that? Oratorially.
Word.
He inspired that. So he had that ability. That's an art form of his own. So
yes.
I always tell people, art isn't just the traditional thought process of what art is. It's the talents that you have and taking that talent to the next level. Yeah. And whether it be graphic design or whether it be what I do or what she does as far as being able to get up and talk to people, so inspire people that way. So
okay,
We have time for one more chat question.
we'll make the time.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to combine two for one here. So, how do you navigate people being critical of your work? And same kind of advice here. How would you deal with advice, and how would you give advice to students that are worried about dealing with failing?
Failure is the best way to learn. And the only thing I always like to tell students, fail often, just don't make the same mistake twice. I'm constantly asking my students to fail, put themselves out there. And it goes back to the first part of that question, put yourself out there. I had one individual who is being extremely successful in website design. Maybe I'll hook you up with him.
Yeah.
But he hustles. He said the best thing you can do is hustle. And even if you don't know it, have enough confidence in yourself to put yourself out there and be critiqued and be in front of people. And that's the best way to learn.
Good deal.
Yeah. Critique for me, the critique is more myself. I critique myself more than I have somebody critique me. But I have had people come up and say, that leg doesn't look quite right. And that's fine. And I was listening to a story about Michelangelo, right? There, the Sistine Chapel painted, and the sculpture of David that he did. And they were talking about the fact that there was several other artists that had tried to use that chunk of granite that they were making, they were not successful of doing it, and then he took it on and he made it successful. But they were talking about if you look at that sculpture, the proportions aren't correct in that. But yet it's vaulted as being, one of the greatest sculptures at all.
Yeah.
But when they were taking, I think it's 17 foot tall, or 14 foot, whatever it was very tall. When they brought it from where he made it to where they were going to put it, there was jeers, people throwing things at it, and that there was not that appreciation for it as it is now, And go back to the Abraham Lincoln thing. I'm a big history guy.
Sure.
When he did the Gettysburg Address, it was, they had commissioned an orator to come in, and he talked for like 3 hours or whatever, a long time. And then Abraham Lincoln came up, and I think it was 5 minutes, whatever. And at the time, they thought that speech was terrible. But yet, over time, now it's one of the greatest speeches ever, know. And so, again, that critique, sometimes, I'm my own worst critic of my stuff. And but if someone else doesn't like what I do, you let that kind of run off your back because, like I say, there's good art and bad art, and it's the same piece. It just depends on the person and how they like it. So.
Okay. A couple more final thoughts, and I want to go to you here. Interestingly, this question has kind of been woven in. We had a roundtable for criminal justice. We had a roundtable for skilled trades. We had a roundtable for health occupations. Each of those, this question has been part of it, but it seems really relevant to this roundtable. Is art changing with artificial intelligence?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get away from it. It is, I think Ryan and I were talking just before we came in. It's a new tool, and the tool is not going to go away. We are just on the precipice of it. And I think it's going to open up new artists of how they use that tool. Because right now we're talking about art, jobs, or opportunities that aren't even invented yet. And it's going to be amazing to see what happens. And I think if we get stuck in our old traditional thinking.
Yeah.
I never thought sitting back in my high school I'd have in my pocket something that could jump on the internet, make a phone call, do my calendar. I mean, you name it, all my music. So absolutely it's going to change. What? We're going to find out, and it's going to be, I think it's exciting.
I'm not getting a sense of foreboding from you, like, we're in trouble, or this wild Mustang, we're never going to tame it.
That's not me, and I'm sure that sentiment could also be true as well, because like anything, I think tools can be used either in a positive light or very detrimental. So there is a path that you could go down that could create a lot of peril.
Yeah.
But I think in the right hands of the artists, could be some pretty awesome stuff done.
And I will, just to kind of like piggyback on that for a second, I do think that there are a lot of other tools that have come into existence that we've just forgotten about, that were also terrifying at the time. Like think about a microwave. I know it's not like an artistic tool, but how freaked out were people when the microwave first started being introduced into homes? And, for some of us, we have those memories. For others of you, you just grew up with a microwave.
No, I have that memory.
Yes. And so it's just a different evolution of how things are, going to be for the future, Even just think of like automobiles. A manual versus an automatic transmission. People were probably terrified, like, how am I going to know if the car's really going to stop if I don't have to use the clutch? Okay, we'll get through this.
Sure.
And so I just think it's a new tool, and it seems like it has different capabilities than what we've experienced, but so have all of these other, technological advances too. It's just happening exponentially, whereas before it would, it might, the span of time between something new and the next new thing was a lot greater.
Yeah.
And now, because of how technology is advancing, we're seeing a lot more of those leaps in a very short time, which is maybe what is more of the scary part for people.
And you're not seeing this new tool as an avenue where an artist will be more obsolete, or it will be easy for me to replicate what that artist can do. You're not concerned about that part of it?
There's probably risks there.
Yeah, I think there's plagiarism and copying in whatever tool you use, absolutely. And I think that 100% exists. I also think you're going to bring into the community a lot more individuals that now have another tool to use for their artistic expression as well. And whether you like it, I like it, Jeff or Amy likes it, it's not going away. And we need to look at, see how we can use it to have more forms of expression.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I look at it as maybe, and I'm not real familiar with the all ins and outs of it, but I look at it more like a tool for me, is if I can say to, have someone design something using AI that could take my vision so I can get a picture of it that I can make my sculpture off from, then I think there's some definite benefits for me there.
Sure.
Because right now I have a gal that I, call up and I'll send her an email and say, hey, I'm trying to design this and this is my thoughts. She'll draw it up. And I want a broadside view of it, and she'll draw it up that way. Well, if I have the capability of using AI to be able to put that into the computer, which I'm a terrible computer person, but which I probably wouldn't be able to be trained to do it. But if I did, I could see that being a really valuable tool for me, for me to have something so I can do what I do in making a sculpture. So.
Okay. There are about roughly 200 of you, 17, 18-year-olds. Thank you for the privilege of letting us share a little bit of your time, and thank you for sharing your insight. Got a couple minutes here. Final thoughts. You can sing a Donnie Marie song.
No, I'm not going to sing for you today. I haven't
May
warmed up.
tomorrow be
No, but I
know
would
that song.
say my advice is don't think that you need to know today what you're going to do tomorrow or 5 years or 50 years. Because I have a feeling any of us here in this space, when we were 17, 18 years old, we probably are nowhere near what we thought we would be doing or the human that we thought we would become. And so just know that, like, you're evolving too. And so don't think that your perfect idea of what your future self will look like needs to be the future self that you actually are.
Cool.
And I'll go back to the process. Find something that you absolutely love the process to do more than you love the outcome. Whether it be going in the field and finding a bale of buying, as far as barbed wire to make a deer head out of it, whatever it is, love the process.
Yeah, and I would just say, pursue your passion. But we talked about AI. I think there's a lot of that mindset that my art, if I'm an artist, needs to look like somebody else's art. And I always tell people, be unique, do your own thing. When I say get lost, go get lost. Find that place and find your niche. Kind of my niche is barbed wire, but I liked using it. It wasn't because my intent was, hey, I'm going to be different, I'm going to use barbed wire. There was something about that attracted me, you know. And so find that, what it is. There's certain artists out there that are 2D artists that paint that I look at their painting. You don't even have to look at their name. I know who it is because of their style, their technique. And that's what I tell people. If you want to be an artist, figure out what your technique is, figure out what your voice is, and then mine has evolved as I've gone on. But again, if you're trying to mimic somebody else, you're never going to be very successful. I think you need to figure out what your voice is. Look at singers. If they try to mimic some other singer, the ones that are most successful that have their own voice, and that's the same thing you need to develop in art, I think, to be successful.
Yeah, very good. Super cool. Okay. Alas, we're out of time. This is one of those I genuinely could sit here for another hour and still get to questions, but we won't this time. However, thank you again for joining us. Noah, once more, thanks for doing what you do. Ryan and Beth, my way brighter colleagues, thank you for being part of this. Annette, if you're out there with us this morning, Annette couldn't be here, but she wanted to. Do well, be well. And you guys, 17, 18-year-olds, juniors, seniors, it sounds cliche, but the world really is your oyster. You've got a lot of opportunities and a lot of people like this that want to share and help you out with it. Happy to do so. Next month, we'll be doing this one more time, but it will be a business-related roundtable. It'll be much more static and not so much fun. No, I'm just kidding. It'll be great. So pass that word along to your business folks. And once more, thank you for joining us. Stay healthy. Stay creative. My superpower is getting up early and asking questions. You have a special power, no doubt in my mind. We started with it. You are tolerant, you are welcoming, you are creative. That's really, really neat, and the world needs more of that. So thanks for doing what you do. And finally, the teachers in the classroom, go thank them before you leave today. Give them a hearty, polite, politically correct pat on the back and thank them for doing what they do. Thanks.